Yukihiro-san,
Yes.
welcome to Baltic Ruby.
Yeah.
And it was 3 days we were here at the conference. So actually today it's a wrap up. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Compared to the other conferences, especially for the Ruby Kite in Japan last month, and it's smaller conference, but the being small is not really a bad things. And this conference, Baltic Ruby, was the friendlier, and then we can see our face. Each one can I can recognize everyone's face. At the only 130 people, and then probably the attendees can take photo with me if every attendee can are possible to make photo with me. So that kind of the intimacy and the friendliness is kind of good attribute of the conference. Probably the Baltic Ruby will grow in the future, and but I want to keep that kind of the attitude forever for the Baltic Ruby.
Thank you. So cruising around, and we had a lot of conversation with people during the conference, and I was asking them, is there any specific questions you want to ask Matz? Is there something that, apart from just like networking, and it looks like the main point was that people wanted to know a little bit more about yourself. So it's not just about you as the creator of Ruby, but also you as a person. And so we prepared a couple of questions for you. So, and like with everybody who's going to be watching, there is going to be like 3 blocks. So one, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
The second one about like your professional career path and like the future vision, and about Ruby, of course, community and Ruby and the future of the Ruby. And I hope we can make it like 30 minutes, something like that. So the first question, let's start if you're comfortable with the personal one.
Yeah.
I think that's the most interesting. Having a lot of like roles and responsibility for core language, the whole team, plus community, might keeping you busy.
Yeah.
But how do you manage having work and life balance between your work and your family? Between conferences and travel, supporting community, answering questions, and at the same time being home, being father, taking home responsibilities. How do you manage to?
At the very early stage of the Ruby development, and I did everything. I designed the language, I implemented the language, and I put some kind of the article to the news groups. I wrote the blog articles. I did everything, that from implementation to promotion. But it is too much. It was too much. So that as community grows, I gradually, give past responsibility to others, because I cannot do everything, and I cannot do everything well. So that first of all, I passed the responsibility of release management to the other guys. Because the cause was, I made some serious mistake in the release in the past. I don't remember the version number, but like 1.4 or something. And I forgot to add the newly added file in the packed archived file. And then so I had to re-release the version 20 minutes later or something like that. And then, I'm not really, the person, and I'm not very good at the bookkeeping or that kind of work. But so soon after that, someone raised his hand and take part of the release management. And then soon after that, for example, the event organizers, community management, or the meetup organization or something like that can spontaneously happens everywhere. So that my burden to manage the community is reduced a lot. So that the people understand my personality. They started to understand my personality, and especially in the core team. So they take care of the things I'm not really good at. So that so that my burden has been reduced in those years. And then
But what if you can give to people a delegate something? What do you keep for yourself? What is your main themes now that you're working on?
I didn't delegate the decision making because the what makes Ruby is not really described in the words. And it is kind of vague image, the only inside of my brain. So that that kind of the decision making and defining what Ruby is Ruby, or providing the vision for the language's future, and then gave a presentation to guide and lead community and prepared for the future or something. That is my irreplaceable role in the community, I think.
And I've seen during those 3 days of the conference, you were coding.
Yeah.
So you keep coding.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Do you code only for Ruby parts, or do you code other projects?
For those 3 days, I code in mRuby. I code mRuby.
mRuby.
Yeah. The canonical Ruby, C Ruby, is mostly driven by the contributors. Most of them are smarter than me as a programmers. Then by those contributions, so that the mRuby, I mean the C Ruby, become faster and more powerful, and then I really appreciate that. And then, but as a programmer, I wanted to play, a role as a programmer, but C Ruby become more and more complex and more and more, serious, and I don't think I can play with it, and so that's one of the reasons I started the mRuby project some 10 something years ago.
But at this stage, being the designer of the language, you design the vision that you mentioned.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
keep it for like the overall Ruby, and then it goes to the different implementation.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the Ruby itself, the vision, how it's gonna evolve. Like, let's say the Ruby 4.0, that's the vision that
Yeah, yeah.
you translate to the community.
Yes.
And then the C Ruby, it's the different people who implement that,
Yeah.
while you still using mRuby as your own project there.
Yes.
Would it be right to say that mRuby, the version of Ruby that you do, is a design prototype for C Ruby?
No.
Okay, but they go hand to hand. Do you see that they will go along, and they will?
It will go along. Because of the the target is different. The C Ruby is the canonical Ruby, and everyone uses C Ruby, and some people still probably use J Ruby or something. And then because it's most powerful and feature rich, and then mRuby is targeted to the smaller devices like microcontrollers, or sometimes it is embedded in some other applications like games, web servers, or something. And in that sense, the resource is really limited. So that sometimes we can drop off some built-in features from Ruby. For example, we can drop off the regular expression or the meta programming feature, or even mRuby can drop the parser, and then or eval function to reduce the memory footprint. So that kind of things, the target audience is clearly different.
Using your own approach, when people submit something to Ruby,
Yes.
and in order to be accepted, you usually ask for use cases.
Yeah.
So what would be the best use case for mRuby? So can you give it back?
Yeah. mRuby use case is for as I said, small devices like some people embed mRuby in the keyboards, mechanical keyboards, or some people embed mRuby in, say, the microsatellite fly over the Earth.
Microsatellites.
Yes,
And it's happened already.
it's happened already. Yeah, we saw 30 something satellites are going around right now.
And there is Ruby.
Yeah, it will be powered. It will be powered.
So we can say it's Ruby on orbit.
Yep.
Okay.
And then some people try to drive the payment device, like the credit card things in mRuby. In some a company in Brazil try to create one. And some games, some indie games, and some publisher game embed mRuby already. Like the most famous one was Nier Automata, and then the other games embed mRuby.
And I know from conference to conference, people bring, specifically in Japan, Ruby Kaigi and others, people bring some devices to showcase.
Yeah.
But let me slightly push us back to the initial question between your personal and professional life. Do you work from home or do you go day by office?
I usually work from home, and especially after the pandemic.
Do you find it convenient for you? Because like usually when you need to do commute from office and back, you can feel refreshed a little bit because when you get up at home, you immediately get to the office. So it's very hard to distinguish where is home and where is office.
Yeah.
So what is your like day-by-day routine? Some people mentioned that in the previous interview you said you have pets.
Yeah.
Do you have what pets? Do you have dogs?
I have a dog and a cat.
A dog and a cat. What is their names?
The dog is Cole, named after the corgi.
Corgi.
Cole. And then the cat is Spinal,
Spina.
after the name of Jewel.
Oh. Okay. And do you walk the dog in the morning? Like
Yeah.
you get up.
Yeah, when I get up and I get the breakfast, and then I start walking for 30 minutes in the morning, and the other 30 minutes after before the dinner. The 1 hour walking.
So at least that gives you some
refreshment.
refreshment for the day.
Yeah, and then I avoid some I lose some weight.
And stress because
probably.
even if you sit like the whole day on the computer, getting out really kind of can release the like stress that you can accumulate. Specifically, like having pets.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice. And do you have kids?
Yeah, I have 4 kids.
How old they are? So,
The oldest one is 31.
okay.
31, 30, 27, and 19.
I think at this stage, like almost everybody would be asked your question. Do they relate it to Ruby? Do they do anything related to Ruby in their jobs? And
none of them have shown interest in programming. So
okay, but have you ever thought what was the reason? Like because you were the role model for them from their childhood, and I bet you would explain them like that Ruby is the language that you created, and there is people who use that. So, but they don't do Ruby, right? So they are not.
They don't even program.
What's their professions? Because they are all grown.
The old one is the work as the kindergarten teacher. The second one is the occupational therapist.
Oh,
Yeah. Third one is right now working as a missionary in the church. Then the youngest one is now in school to become a dental hygienist.
so it's more from the side of, human related and
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
really valuable for society roles. Very interesting. Do you consider Ruby being a fifth child for?
Yeah, and sometimes.
Is there any different because like being a father, like as soon as you started being a father, you kind of change your role model. It's more more responsibility, a little bit different approach how you explain things, how you teach, how do you interact with kids. Do you have any outcomes from being a father to being a community leader, like being more passionate, being more nice? Like, is there any like correlation or any connections you can find, like being a father and being a community leader?
Uh, it's kind of difficult for the observed sub the fairly objects myself, but I think the being the father, I have to treat them and my children and the community members as an individual, individual existing, and with the clear will, and then they have feelings, they have will, and then they have they have their backgrounds. So that so I have to respect their feeling and willingness. So
So you cannot force them to do
yeah,
something, right?
I
So
cannot afford them. If Ruby community is a say company, so that I think I can have some kind of the management order to the member, because the company pays them. Then the company has some kind of the right to order them for ask them to do something for company, because the company pays them to sustain their lives. But in the Ruby community, so that they are very spontaneously gathered, probably due to the technical curiosity, or some kind of friendship, or maybe some kind of the, the hope to become a better programmer or something. But we have no force to be a member of the community, or we cannot force them to become a contributor. I just suggest them. I just ask them. And for the children, it's the same. Our children do not choose to be a part of our family. They given from heaven.
right.
So I want to guide them, and I have some kind of expectation for my children, but I cannot force them to program.
Obviously. But at the same time, keeping that kind of a similarity between family and community, do you recognize yourself as, I wouldn't say like, but no, let's make it straight. Do you recognize yourself as a celebrity or a star in Ruby community? And in the same situation, would you consider yourself being like a peer to your family? So because like obviously people from like Ruby community across the globe
Yeah.
recognize you. It's an honor for a lot of people to talk to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people grateful you for what you've done.
Yeah.
And in this situation, when you say I've met Matz, for a lot of people, even here, it means something that could be like lifetime event.
Yeah, probably.
So they want to make a photo,
I
they
understand.
can kind of stick with that. But how do you accept that? Do you really like recognize yourself on that position, or you try to push yourself down as a peer because you behave that way? Like you behave like a very equal, I would say, to everybody, and that's what people like, and I think that's the similarity back from families. So in this situation, like, do you consider yourself to be like a celebrity or a role model for community?
Actually, I don't consider myself as a celebrity from my heart, and I accept to be treated like a celebrity, like people want to take photo with me, and that's okay. Some people want to hear from me in the presentation or in the interview like this, and I accept that, but I'm not sure I deserve that.
But you do, and
And so that it's kind of the difference in the self-image, like my self-recognition is a member of the community, but somehow they don't treat me like that. They don't treat me like that, and then but but it's probably impolite to refuse those treatment. Okay, I'm a man. You may remember. You don't take photo with me or something like that. It's not comfortable for both of us. So I accept
yes,
that.
yeah. Thank you. Maybe last one.
Yes.
The personal question. It's more about hobbies. So also people ask about your hobbies, aside from programming, because like for like software engineers,
Yeah, yeah.
for us who came from engineering, you do coding for work, then you go back home, you coding for yourself,
Yes.
because you like it.
Yeah.
On a weekend, you can code with friends.
Yes.
If you have any like, community meetups or hackathons or
Yes.
whatever. So usually when you ask people who do coding, and like Ruby people is not exception here, like what are your hobbies? It's like, here's my hobby.
Yeah.
Ruby is my
Cool.
hobby. So do you have any hobbies aside from programming and Ruby? Like,
I used to read many books and watch many movies, and so the reading and the watching movie is I consider it they are my hobbies. But the recent days, so my free time is getting decreasing, and my what the power to concentrate is reducing. So that, for example, I cannot stand a 2-hour movie sitting in front of the screen. So last 2-3 years, the number of the movies I watch in a year is drastically reduced.
so reduced. So you watch less.
Yeah, you watch less. I watch less, yes. And probably I watch, I don't know, 30, 40 movies in a year or something. But now I watch probably 1 or 2 in a year.
Oh, really? So then, what would be the movie that you would recommend for somebody, or what is your favorite movie? Like any that just came to your mind?
Yeah, my favorite one is the first one of the Matrix series.
All three.
Matrix. No, only the first
On the
one.
first one. Okay.
Yeah, and I enjoyed the Back to the Future pretty a lot. And I recently read some French movie that was pretty much interesting, but I don't remember the name title in the English because I watched it. Yeah, saw the title in Japanese, but
Oh, you can say Japanese. I think we can later on translate it.
9人の翻訳家 literal translation is the 9 translator.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you play video games? Like,
No, I don't play games.
so it's more like reading and
Reading
and watching.
watching movies. I also like to read mangas. I really love mangas.
So, but that's very like Japanese. That's part,
Yeah,
I think that's part of the culture. But do you read it? I mean, like in traditional way, or do you read digital?
Recently, I read mangas on computer.
On computer. Yeah. So I think that's the first block, and I think we're running all good. From the professional point of view, as you said, that you still do coding, and the coding mostly dedicated to mRuby.
Yes.
What else? And like the coding part important. Then the decision making is hard because I think you need to review, consider, accept,
Yes.
or reject, or comment back something. So how would you structure, if we say like on a daily basis, like weekly basis, what percentage of time you spend coding versus like reviewing or making decision or doing even like some other tasks? So how would you like shape your like overall responsibilities, but not on a like large scale, but more like on a scale of a week, let's say?
The bigger thing first that I sometimes have the conference like this, the Baltic Ruby, and then I have the Ruby Kaigi, Baltic Ruby, Eurogo, Ruby RubyConf in the States or something. That would take probably a week or something. Then during that time I travel, and then the usual days I have a lot of the meetings because I do some kind of freelance consulting work to earn money.
So you need to maintain your daily job. In other words.
Yeah.
And like, is it half time? 30%, 40%, like how much usually it takes you to?
Probably maybe 10% of the working hours.
10%, but that's not that much,
that bad.
I think. And but you still need to maintain that, like because that's what makes you a living, right? So you need to maintain job because also people interested in the question that usually like and that's what we have here. So is that mandatory for you to like? Is it on otherwise? Would it be enough for you to be just the decision maker for Ruby to maintain yourself, or having job? You still need to have a job in order to maintain yourself because you need to get salary. You need to have money for living otherwise. So that's kind of the thing that kind of you need to balance because on one hand, community can support like on GitHub or others.
Yeah, if I ask them strongly, yes.
Yeah, but if you don't, at the same time, you need to spend some time dedicated your time for work, for money. And like the question here, what do you do then for like this consulting work? And what would be the companies that you provide them the services? They're related to Ruby or not related to Ruby?
Most of the companies are web-based and the Ruby-based company, and then most of the cases I have some kind of the question and answer session with their engineers, so that they can understand Ruby better or the background of the Ruby better, and then or maybe we can exchange the information about the new things in the Ruby community or in the tech industry in general or something like that. So those kind of the information exchange can inspire me so that, for example, I personally don't do Rails at all. So
that was my next question.
And then so the communication with the real Ruby users and the Rails user is kind of important for me to understand what the users need from Ruby.
Let's say the project that you mentioned for the satellites and the Ruby, was that a commercial project?
Yeah, it's a commercial project. It's the
And that's one of the example, right?
Yeah.
So the consultancy that you can
Yeah,
potentially.
yeah, a company. Yeah, a company has the business to you know launch the satellite and gather information from them to then sell those information, so those pictures and the informations to their clients. And the whole system, our whole space system is controlled by mRuby. Yes.
And I know there is a number of countries, of course Japan, but also United Kingdom, that have Ruby as the governmental standard for programming. So let's say if you go for tenders, like the business tenders in UK, and you offering like your services based on Ruby, you would have like preferences. I bet the same for Japan. So if let's say governmental sector needs to have a solution, and there is like a .NET or Java and Ruby, the preference would go to Ruby because of this standardized approach from the government. Maybe true, maybe not. But at the same time, I think the biggest project in Japan that is run Ruby is the railroads. Is it true or not? Like, I mean,
Actually, the at least last 10 years, Ruby is not that popular for the bigger organization and the companies. And in the years from say 2006 to 2012, the local governments and many big companies sponsors our events and the taking their preference for the Ruby language. But those days they relatively
do not
like to choose Ruby. I don't know the reason, but they prefer more popular programming language like TypeScript.
Even in Japan,
Yeah,
or specifically
Java
in
and
Japan.
C#. I don't know. I don't know the other country. I don't know about the other country. But a bigger company prefers the Java and C#.
Last November, and at Ruby conference in San Diego,
Yes.
you had a keynote talk, and I was also there, and I made a screenshot of your talk, where you mentioned that, and that year was the anniversary for Ruby. So
Yes,
it's
yes.
30 years of Ruby, and you mentioned that like for the next 30 years, you won't probably be the whole 30 years maintainer, and you said that you need to find somebody who will succeed you in that role. So how do you see that? In fact, would it be a person? Because like you mentioned earlier that you keep the decision making for the language itself from the high level view. So when you decide to step out, let's say you say, okay, now I'm ready to take even like decision maker to somebody's hands. Do you think it's going to be one person or the organization?
It is the open question without any the specific answer yet, because I'm not going to retire any soon, but I'm a mere mortal, so that I might die. The plane would crash in the way back to Japan tomorrow or something.
We all hope not.
I really hope not. But even though we don't have any concrete plan for retirement, but I think we have to prepared in at least in some degree. And that is the reason I published that open question, so that we have to think about that before I made something. I face something serious.
But like overall, do you think it's going to be one person?
Oh yeah, that's a problem. And in general, any good product to be should be led by the small number of the decision maker, preferably one. And so in that sense, if Ruby has new, leader and one leader to lead the community, that is preferable, I think. But at the same time, as far as I know, no one in the core community are willing to take part of my role, because they joined the community to make part of Ruby better. For example, the virtual machine faster, or improve the garbage collector or something like that. And very few people have shown interest in designing the language, because if someone is willing to design language, probably he would start his own programming language. The designing language is pretty much interesting and fun work, but at the moment, the designing existing language is not that fun. But I don't want to force somebody to take part of that not fun job. It is pretty much interesting and exciting for me because I created Ruby. But if someone take place of me, it's not. I don't think it's really exciting job for him. That is the problem. And the second part is that even though that we still keep moving forward, but syntactical change or drastical change to the language are reduced in those days, because the Ruby has enough power, Ruby has enough features, so that we are very slow at improving the language, and we are very eagerly working on improving the implementation, and we are preparing the many tools, and we are improving the performance, but we still improve the language, but the pace is slower than the past. So that in that sense, under that kind of the specific situation, so that maybe there's some kind of committee work committee can work for the language, like current Ruby, but I'm not so sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of undecided issues.
So you mentioned today that the very first Ruby conference in Japan, where people gathered, had a very practical purpose to implement the Ruby gem. And then also, I know that you and a few core members used to have travel conferences engaging people to contribute back, like explaining how to do that. Of course, contribution is important. But if we say about like the global Ruby community, the majority of people that we have, like people who we have here, do you consider them as a consumers of language more or contributors? Because on one hand, being a Rails developer and developing web application in most of the cases, people consuming all the good things that you develop and what you foresee for them, like for the future, how language is supposed to be evolve. But do not having like exposure down to the like language paradigms, it's very hard for them to contribute back. So they can contribute around their ecosystem, they can produce libraries, they can do some good things and toolings, but in this situation, like the Ruby community for you, first of all, it's consumers or contributors?
Some years ago, I created the term Rubyist. The definition of the Rubyist is the Ruby users who stronger feeling than mere users. Like so if a person that who use Ruby has the strong feeling like I like Ruby, or I want to do something for Ruby, or okay, I do want to contribute to Ruby, or the degree will be different from person to person, but something stronger than the okay, I use Ruby. Yeah, I call them Rubyist. Then I want more people become Rubyists from mere Ruby user. I want the member of the community become Rubyist, and you don't have to be a core contributor tomorrow, or you don't have to create gems tomorrow, but you want to take part in the Ruby activities like conferences, and then maybe organizing meetups, or then maybe writing some kind of the blog article on the existing gem, or somebody try to create their own gem, or persuade their companies to disclose their library as a gem, or maybe persuade company to sponsor conferences, and then maybe some of them become core contributors. Degree were different, but that kind of the stronger feeling. I would people the member of the Ruby community to have that kind of stronger feeling.
Could you give like, let's say if somebody want to contribute and starting from like easy task, but eventually, let's say if somebody wants to become a core member of the Ruby team, what would be their skills required to start contributing? Would it be enough Ruby, or is there any C or other languages, design, or any kind of a background? Like if you would hire somebody, how would you describe?
The core contributor have different roles. Some people working on the documentation, like out things, and then some people become a contributor to maintain the gems, the bundle gems, and then some people are working in the core contributor to maintain the web servers, or some kind of the cooperation work like the contact with the companies to organize the release schedule or something like that. And then we have release managers and some kind of the other managers. And then some people create the tools for Ruby as a core contributors. So then the other people write and improve the very core of Ruby language. So that we usually call the C programmers the core contributors, but we have a bunch of other kind of core contributors. So that depends on the roles they want. The requirement will differ. Yeah. And then for the core developer, who in charge of the implementation of the C Ruby usually should be the C programmer, and then along with because we are kind of kind of big team of the programmers, the experienced programmers, so that we require some kind of the communication skill between the tech people. And the part of the Ruby is written in Rust, especially the YJIT part. And so the Rust knowledge and the skills would help to become the contributor to that part of the language.
What about Japanese language?
the biggest dev meeting is held in Japanese, so that the Japanese ability would help, but not required. For example, we have a lot of the core contributors who do not speak any Japanese, but every agenda of the discussion will be translated Japanese. I mean English, and we have the record and the tasks and the discussions and the conclusion will be all described in English, so that the Japanese communication skill is not mandatory.
And for documentation as well. I mean, like it's
Every documentation is the English one is the canonical one.
So you mentioned this term Rubyist, and apart from that, there is a Ruby certification exists. At this stage, it's not that popular that it could be, like taking examples from other languages where people can get a certificate. Like nowadays, specifically if you go for like a bigger platforms, people tend to get different certificates. People like to collect different certificates. Like here is a certificate for Kubernetes, here is for AWS usage, there is like Java or whatever black belt certification. But Ruby still have one.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of one hand. On the other hand, it's might be hard to convince more people to do that. Popularize, I mean, the certification itself. So, but at the same time, if you hold a Ruby certificate, there is no guarantee that you can get a job. Like,
no,
it's a good to have for you personally as an achievement. But you mentioned that you want to have more Rubyist people because it's kind of like a little bit more deliberate view of who are the people who use Ruby. Maybe we need to create another certification for Rubyist people, or maybe not a certification, even an award, and grant it based on the contribution, like year after year, and like to make the recognition for those like active community people higher. So, what do you think about the future for Ruby certification that exists? Are we gonna have more certification or more awards coming from Ruby specifically, not from other like frameworks and so on?
At the time we organized the Ruby Association in 2008 was 8, I think, and at that time the big traditional company, especially in Japan, that's kind of the struggle to determine which to hire which engineers, and I want to provide the information for those suit people to understand who has the skill, who has the knowledge of Ruby language. So that's the reason I created the Ruby certification. So the target audience of the Ruby certification, both silver and gold, has to prove themselves for the traditional companies and suit people, and it worked well in Japan because of the Japan is very conservative society, and the traditional big companies are stronger in Japan. But years pass by, and we have a lot of the startup company in Japan, so that those companies do not care about the certification, but they determine who to hire by engineer to engineer communication, so that the responsibility of the certification is decreased compared to the past, like 2008 or 2009. But when I talked with the people especially in the States, so those people determine who to hire by engineer to engineer communication from the scratch. So that did think the need for the certification is less important in the other countries. So that we translated the certification exam to English, but we didn't promote that much because of that reason. So that we don't think the needs for the certification is not that big in non-Japanese countries. But we still live in Japan, and then all member of the Ruby Association are Japanese, so that maybe we misunderstood the needs. So that if someone needs to have this certification, so that we would consider about the promoting that, and then having the other certification. So that I don't think the needs for the other certification, but we have the Ruby Association also has a grant program. We accept the proposals from all over the country, including, and we accept the non-Japanese people too, and then so that we pay the grant money for the project if they accomplish that recently, yeah, probably due to our laziness for the promotion, the number of proposal is not that big. But if we receive more proposals, that would be wonderful. And then that kind of the grant program would be, better introduction to the core contributor also. For example, the last year we have four grant approved, and then two of them are planned to be merged into the core.
It's a Fukuoka.
Not that one. The grant from the Ruby Association.
Okay.
We have Fukuoka award too.
Okay. I have last question.
Yes.
So it's about juniors. It's about how to attract new people to Ruby. So maybe you can give an advice for those junior people or for people who considering become a Ruby engineer and finally a Rubyist. How would they start? What would be important for them to, because like at this stage, from my point of view, the main problem and like pros and cons always have, that people try to use shortcuts. And the shortcuts for them, first, to get a first job. Second, being a little bit lazy and not working hard and not studying hard is to start with Rails. And nowadays, we have people who can have their jobs in software development, coding Rails, and not always understand how Ruby works. What would you suggest for people who start in their career in Ruby? What's the easiest way to start? Where to go, and what would be the better job for them, like the first job? Should they join community, or should they find companies who doing like a boot camps and trainership and so on and so forth? So like your advice to newcomers.
That's tough questions, because I never been a junior. I'm a self-taught programmer, and I majored in computer science, but the programming class was too low level too low level for me, and I learned by myself. Back then we didn't have internet. The situation has
libraries were like a physical building when you get books to read.
Yeah, and I entered to the library and read so many computer books, and the situation has been so changed. So that's one thing. But only one thing I can say is the joy is the motivation. That people do programming because it's joy. Some people do programming because of the joy, and then the other people do programming because of money, and then or both. And then people driven by joy is more motivated in general. And then the motivated programmer tend to have more skills. So that the joy leads to motivation. Motivation leads skill. Skill means skill leads to the better position, and then better position is money. That kind of things. So I put joy first. Then I expect the local meetup to help junior, because the having conferences and then watching to the conference talks is probably a little bit tough for juniors, but some kind of the communication and the face-to-face communication would help programmer become better programmer. So I think it's the attending to the local meetup is one of the best opportunity to know each other and find a way to become a better programmer.
Get advice.
And or exchange information, exchange knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It took a little bit longer than we
Yeah.
But I think we covered interesting topic. Yukihiro-san, thank you very much for the answers, and we hope to see you again. Maybe not on the next, but of course you are always welcome. But to other Baltic Ruby in the future.
Yeah.
And have a safe flight back home.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we see you again. Thank you.
See you again.